Warning: the Not Thought podcast contains language and content that may not be suitable for younger audiences. Listener discretion is advised. There will also be spoilers for various anime throughout the course of this episode. Please use caution in case we discuss a series you haven't finished. Finally, the opinions expressed are those of the individual participants and may not reflect the Not Thought podcast as a whole. Enjoy the show. Hello and welcome to Dub Talk, where a group of nerds come together to ramble on about anime dubs. I'm Jet, and I'm joined tonight by Steph.
Hi. How are you?
Hardy.
That's a robot.
And Amon.
Beep, 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 boop.
And we're here tonight for a very special episode of the show. We're here to talk about the dub for a series that is very near and dear to my heart and what I wanted to talk about for a long time. Mainly because it took so long for this to get an anime in the first place. Like, seriously, I've probably been waiting since, like, before I graduated college. We're here to talk about Pluto.
Like the dog from Disney?
Not that Pluto.
I like to tell a story. Can I tell a story?
Sure.
Sure.
I just dug this up for shits and giggles, so I was going to do a bit, but it's here anyway. Once upon a time, in a land far away, there lived a nameless monster. The monster was dying to have a name, so he decided to set out on a journey to find his name. Oh, wait. That's the wrong show.
Sorry, Steph.
My bad.
Yeah.
I was like, shit. My brain at the last minute was like, wait, that's my intro. I'm like, oh no, damn it. I didn't pull it up in time.
Alright, I had to get one monster reference in there somewhere. Probably not going to be the last one.
Not by a long shot. You kidding me?
Alright, so for anyone unaware of what Pluto is, here's a plot description from Anime Planet. In a distant future where sentient humanoid robots pass for human, someone or something is out to destroy the seven greatest robots of the world. Europol's top detective Gazette is assigned to investigate these robot serial murders. The only catch is that he himself is one of the seven targets. So, what's particularly interesting about this series is that it's actually a recreation of a story arc from the late Osamu Tezuka's iconic manga and anime franchise, Tetsuwan Atom, or as it's known to everyone over the age of 30 outside Japan, Astro Boy, one of the first pioneers of manga and anime as we know it today, quite literally the first TV anime ever made.
Woohoo!
Specifically, this is a recreation of the story arc The Greatest Robot on Earth from 1963, which would later go on to become one of the most iconic and influential story arcs of the series, so much so that it even influenced a young boy by the name of Naoko Urasawa.
Yay!
So this specific recreation was done by Naoko Urasawa in 2003, who himself is one of the most celebrated manga artists in Japan and has created such works as 20th Century Boys, Billy Bat, and Monster, just to name a few.
And Hardy's favorite show, Master Keaton.
Of course.
You can't forget Master Keaton. Hardy loves Master Keaton. He will try and get everybody to watch Master Keaton if it was readily available. Everybody. He got me to fucking watch it back in the day. He managed to get me to fucking watch it, so.
Yeah, he'll probably get me with that someday.
On that note, if anyone from Kodansha USA out there is listening, tell me what I need to do to get Billy Bat licensed. I'll kill people. I'll do it. Let me know, buddy. Let me know.
Let's bring 20th Century Boys in while we're at it.
I look at the fucking character list, and I scroll down the bottom. They have real world people. Lee Harvey Oswald is in this manga. I wonder what the fuck's going on. Let me know.
Please bring Billy Bat over, because I think that's the last, at least major one. I think there's one more, but
yeah.
It's the last major post Master Keaton series that hasn't made it to the US. He has a bunch of earlier stuff which will probably we're not going to get a long manga about judo. I don't think that's just
No,
not
I
in the
doubt
cards
it,
for America.
But
But
I think
Billy Bat
Bat's
would
the last major one, I think, right?
Billy Bat would be like every other Urasawa manga. It would probably sell okay for about 5 volumes and then crater immediately because no one actually reads Urasawa in this country. It's very sad.
It makes me depressed. I gotta go back to collecting more. I picked up. You're gonna love this, Jet. When Andrew and I went into the city a few weeks back, we killed some time over at Book Off on I think it's 44th on 44th, and I picked up volume 3 of Pluto.
What's up? Oh, that's cool. I know that's gotten pretty hard to find now.
No, yeah, like I did see volumes of, because I was in the city again last weekend by myself, and I went to Kinokuniya, and I saw Monster, 20th Century Boys, and Pluto. I don't think I saw Master Keaton though, but I did see Master Keaton, I think, in Book Off.
Yeah, he does have a more recent series out, Outsador. I do have like 6 or 7 volumes of that one. So yeah, as you can see here, we're all pretty big fans of Urasawa. And that can also be said for one person in particular, Masao Maruyama, one of the founders of Madhouse and later MAPPA. Who was the one? Who was the one who decided to handle producing this project? It's literally been his. It's basically been his magnum opus for like the last decade or so.
Damn, really?
Yeah, he's been trying to get this made for years.
Damn.
My understanding is like Monster getting made was also kind of his baby. Like he really likes Naoki Urasawa stuff.
He's a real one, man. Come on now.
Yeah. So this is a pretty big deal for him, and it's also a pretty big deal for like Tezuka stuff in general, because this is probably the first major Astro Boy anime to have come out since 2003. Well, unless you count out of the beginning, but that's locked in Amazon Prime jail and isn't legally available anymore. So yeah, basically just this.
Whoops.
Yeah, so, okay, so, before we get started, I'm curious, what is everyone's familiarity with Astro Boy?
Fuck you. We were just talking about this before recording, and you knew you had to ask that question again, didn't you?
I was always planning to ask this, but I knew how you were going to answer
God
it.
damn it. Gee, thanks. I know nothing except for Astro Boy himself and maybe Dr. Tenma. That's it.
What about you, Hardy?
My experience with the original Astro Boy is very limited, but I have seen some footage of both the black and white and the 2003 version. Basically, the only thing, the only complete thing of Astro Boy I've seen was the Nicolas Cage animated movie.
Wait, what?
That's, yeah,
Oh, do you not know this? Oh, in the early 2000s, there was an American-made CG Astro
Maybe
Boy
I know
movie where
this.
Freddie Highmore plays Astro Boy and Nicolas Cage plays Dr.
I
Tenma.
might know this. Hold on. 2009, maybe?
yeah, it was 2009.
Oh, I've heard of this shenanigans. I never watched it, though. Okay, I've heard about this version. Yep. The CGI shenanigans.
Yeah, fun fact, that was done by, and I kid you not, of all studios, Illumination.
Oh, God. Wait, Nicolas Cage oh, fuck me.
Can you imagine
For the folks at home who don't understand what I'm referring to, so Nicolas Cage in this version was Dr. Tenma. So, fuck.
Yeah.
And I'm just staring at the cast right now, and David Boers played a character by the name of Mike the Fridge. That's a name and a half. And I like how Tobio Tenma is now Toby Tenma in this version.
I was like, that does sound pretty par the course for like Americanization with Astro Boy.
Oh, it does. Jesus Christ. Oh, lordy. Alright.
What about you, Amon?
I've seen a little bit of the '60s show on Adult Swim because they used to air that back in the day on there. Interesting show. I don't want to say cheap, but like there were definitely some fight scenes in the episodes I saw that were just a series of still images.
Tezuka was one of the pioneers of very limited animation, for better or worse.
Which to be fair, from what I've read, I don't think a lot of people were actually working on that. So like I get it. But in addition to the '60s show, I've read a part of the manga, which is fun. It's very old, but it's enjoyable. And in preparation to this, I was trying to make a point of seeing like the other adaptations to this storyline that have happened. I didn't get a chance to see the one for the '60s one, but I did see the storyline adaptation of this for the '80s Astro Boy cartoon, because it's on Tubi, with an English dub, actually.
Oh, boy.
And the dub is not great, but it does have an absolutely beautiful moment where there's a part in the original story that's not really in this adaptation where Pluto basically goes to Astro Boy's house to fight him, but he's not there, but Uran is, and tries to disguise herself as Astro Boy to throw him off his trail. And at one point while they're fighting, Pluto just says to her, "I don't detect 7 different powers in you, only bad manners." Which, I'm gonna have a lot of I'm gonna have a lot of praises for this dub, but I'm not quite sure it tops that. I'm gonna be honest with you.
That's amazing.
Is it better in every other regard? Absolutely, but that's a beautiful line.
That's amazing. Oh my god.
That's really incredible.
That's my favorite thing now. Holy shit.
As for me, so in general, this series was probably my first major introduction to Astro Boy. Like, I had seen like bits and pieces of the 2003 version when I was a kid, but I didn't like watch it all that much. So I read the manga for this like back in college because I used to listen to the old A&N podcast Handcast a lot, and they talked about this manga a lot. So one day I was at I think anime festival in New York or something like that with my friends. They had a few volumes of this on the shelf, so I decided to pick it up, and I've been hooked ever since. And it has gotten me to check out a couple of other Astro Boy things. I did eventually go back to actually watch all the 2003 version. Mostly because I was walking home from a Kmart one day. I was walking home one day and I stopped by my local Kmart. And they happen to have a copy of the 2003 version for literally $5. So I figured, hey, why not?
That's great. I love that.
That series is a pretty good time. So dub is a little wonky, but it otherwise holds up to it. There is a pretty fun story about that dub that I found pretty amusing.
Yeah.
So apparently the 2003 version, apparently the animation team that worked on it actually made a very specific point of trying to make sure the show would kind of work for Western sensibilities. So they tried to make sure that all the content would be stuff that could get past American broadcasters pretty well. But then when the show was brought over here, for some reason it was given to Kids WB to air on Saturday mornings. And for anyone who isn't aware of what Saturday morning cartoon broadcasts were like, those had some of the strictest broadcast standards of literally anything, especially after 2001. If you're wondering why all the 4Kids dubs are like that, that is literally why. So they ended up suggesting the 2003 Astro Boy dub to a lot of weird edits for that reason. And needless to say, the folks back in Japan were not happy, so
I can't imagine why. Can't imagine why, guys.
Yeah.
Japan, why are you angry?
So I guess the lesson here is they probably should have aired it on Cartoon Network.
Yeah. 100%.
Anyway. That does get both of our preamble out of the way. So it's time to talk about the actual dub for this series. And as always, we're going to kick off our discussion by talking about the people behind the booth. Excuse me. The ADR, the voice director, and the adaptive scriptwriter. In the case of this show, on voice direction, we have Patrick Seitz, assisted by Kristen Parati. Excuse me again. And for the scripts, we have Patrick Seitz, who ended up pulling double duty as he wrote for the dub as well. Patrick Seitz has directed such dubs as Mars Comes In Like a Lion, Mr. Utsumatsu, Girls Bravo, and most relevant to tonight's discussion, Monster, which, as mentioned before, was one of Urasawa's previous works. And as for Kristen Parati, this actually is her first time assisting Patrick Seitz on voice direction, as he's also been the ADR director on such projects he's worked on, including Agretzko, BlazBlue Alter Memory, and Mars Comes In Like a Lion. And as far as script work goes, Patrick Seitz has done dub scripts for such shows as Gara the Animation, Maria the Virgin Witch, Dragon Ball Z Kai, and of course Monster. So, how do you guys feel about the direction and script writing?
This makes my heart so fucking happy that they brought Patrick in to do this show. Because I find that the English dub for Monster is... I'm going to be talking about Monster probably quite a bit tonight, because Monster is, in fact, like, 100% my favorite anime series, like, ever. And the English dub has a lot to do with it. But I find that English dub, while it has minor flaws, like, top tier. Like, near perfect for me. It's my sensibilities. But to have Patrick Seitz, who previously worked on an Urasawa work, come in and work on another one, he already has an understanding of Naoki Urasawa's his tone, the character work, the character development that he goes for. So Patrick is probably the perfect person to work on this show. And it is also not lost on me with some of the goddamn casting on this show. Side note, can I just say, we're not talking about him, but fuck me. Alright. Paul St. Peter in Pluto voices the school principal of Adam and Uran's, right? Paul St. Peter, the principal in that in Pluto, is an exact replica of Dr. Reinbach, I think it is, in fucking Monster.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul St. Peter also voices this character.
he is the required Wilford Brimley character in
Correct.
all of Urasawa's works.
Correct. But it's not lost on me that they had fun in the casting process of this show either. With there's a lot of callbacks to the dub cast of Monster, as we'll kind of get into throughout the course of the show. And they're in some of the most interesting and fun places. But some of the talent that was pulled in to even be in the show in general is astounding. Like, it's so much fun. But I think that Patrick was the perfect choice to not only direct this dub, but also write it. Because he understands the nuances, he understands Urasawa's work because of his experiences working on Monster. And that's a long project in and of itself. So, I really, really enjoyed the directing and writing on this show a lot. As well as the casting. Like, God. Like, all around, like, the back-end stuff of it, and the production parts of it, I just thought were just phenomenally well done.
Awesome. Hardy?
Yeah, I think as far as casting choices and writing and directing goes, it was really done well. If I did have any critiques in particular, and this is something I also noticed with the other show on Netflix that came out really close to this, Scott Pilgrim, some of the lip flaps are off. Yeah, not too bad, but I rewatched the last episode of the show just today, and at certain points it's very noticeable. So I don't know if that's a Netflix thing or if they'll go back and fix it eventually, but mixing the general could do a little bit better, but as far as the actual acting is concerned, it's great. I will have a few gripes here and there later on, near the bottom half of the discussion, but for the most part, everything sounds really good.
Cool. Amon.
Before I get to my thoughts, Steph actually reminded me of something which I don't think she knows, and that I'm going to tell you, the audience, in case you're also not familiar.
Mm-hmm.
Tezuka had this thing that he called his star system, which is based. Tezuka made like a truly comical amount of comics while he was alive. Like, he was distressingly prolific, frankly. Um, but a thing he would do is that often when he was doing a series, he would often basically populate the side cast with pre-existing character designs he'd already made, usually to kind of match up with, like, a certain kind, if like, oh, this character is fitting this archetype. Well, I've already made a character in that archetype. I'm going to, quote unquote, cast him as that character. So you'll see a lot in his stuff, and as tribute to that, in here, Urasawa does that for a number of his own characters. He does that with the principal, as you were talking about.
Okay.
And more noticeable, there's another one here that we're going to get to in a couple of targets. Which, when I was reading the manga and I saw this, I thought, no, that's so fucking dark. What is wrong with you? So that and you get this also in the dub, where obviously there has been, there are character designs in Monster that exist in here too, and Patrick has made an effort to try and recast those actors in those roles, which I think is delightful. I think the dub as a whole is delightful. Like I'll get into this. I'm a sucker for this story. Like, this is the exact kind of thing I want to watch. So Pluto as a whole is already a very easy sell for me, but like, Patrick puts in the work. Like, this is great. I love all this. This is wonderfully cast. I think everyone's turning in a really great performance. There's a couple in here that they just make me proud to be alive to see them happening just in real time. It makes me so happy. And I'll get them with more details of those when we get to them. But like, this is fantastic. Like, I was really hoping the show would be good. Like Jet, I've been waiting for years for this to come out. Just not even when it was announced. Just like reading the manga and like, man, I hope they adapt this someday. This is great. And like, yeah, Patrick did like a wonderful job, and Kristen too. Like, this is great stuff.
Okay, so as for me, while I haven't talked about this too often, well, I know Cowboy Bebop is kind of held up as the gold standard for anime dubs, and I can largely understand why. I personally consider the dub to Monster to be, in my opinion, the actual best anime dub ever made. Like, largely due to Patrick Seitz's great direction on it, but also because the overall ensemble was so well put together that I'm pretty confident if you showed a bunch of different people that dub and you asked them which performance was their favorite, you'd probably get a bunch of wildly different answers, and they'd all be pretty valid. And, well, that's partially due to Monster being a pretty strong ensemble show in and of itself. I don't think that's something I can say about even some of the most celebrated anime dubs of all time, so that is, like, a pretty impressive feat. And, while Pluto's cast definitely isn't as big as Monster's, it does have a pretty similar quality in terms of being an ensemble show. And much like with Monster, I feel like if you asked me who my favorite performance in the dub was, I'd probably come back to you with a different answer each time, and they'd all feel pretty valid. And considering some of the names we'll be talking about here, the fact that I don't have a definitive favorite is also a pretty wild feat. There's some real tour de force here. Like, it's pretty incredible. And it's also clear that this was a series that Patrick Seitz was really passionate about. Like, especially given his whole attachment to Monster. Like, I remember when this show got re-announced for Netflix, like, Patrick Seitz was going nuts, really hoping he'd get to direct the show, so glad that actually worked out for him. And when the show finally came out, like, pretty much his entire Twitter feed was nothing but him being excited about how good a job everyone in the cast had done, and it's really delightful just to see someone involved in the project be that passionate about it, so yeah, you can tell Patrick Seitz was, like, really proud of his work here. And I also want to give a shout out to the dub's casting director, Rachel Sasuke, because she really went out. She just really went all out with the casting here. Like, brought together a pretty strong ensemble of anime veterans, some newer faces, and some big name voice actors who you normally wouldn't see touch an anime with a 10-foot pole because it's usually beneath their pay grade. So, like, I can only imagine what kinds of strings were pulled behind the scenes to get this all together, and definitely paid off. And lastly, I also got to say I really appreciate the effort he went through with casting a few actors of Middle Eastern descent because, as we'll get into later, a lot of this story is mostly a big allegory for a lot of what went down in Iraq over the course of 2000s and the whole war on terror narrative. So, considering the subject matter, it was really important to have that in the casting here, and I'm glad they had it because it really helps with hits and dub. So, are we all good to move on?
Oh yeah.
All right, so we have a pretty bulky cast to get through, and we're going to start by talking about some of our supporting characters, and we've got quite a few of them. We've got Dr. Tenma, Professor Chanamizu, Uran, Helena, Adolf Haas, Professor Hoffman, Paul Duncan, and Brow 1589. Dr. Tenma is the former head of the Mystery of Science, and like in the main Astro Boy canon, he is the one who created Adam as a replacement for his dead son Tomio before rejecting Adam for not being a real boy and selling him to the circus. So, yeah, he's basically patient zero for every bad anime dad in existence. Like, you know how we got all our Gendo Ikaris and whatnot, it all comes back to him.
Oh, great. So Dr. Tenma is the reason why we have the bad dad stereotype. Good to know.
On the opposite end of the dad spectrum, we have Professor Tanamizu, the current head of the Ministry of Science, who, also like in main Astro Boy canon, rescued Adam from the circus and took him in as his surrogate son to assist in his efforts in bridging the gap between humans and robots and protecting robot rights. And he's generally just a very nice dude, like a very nice grandpa. Uran is Adam's younger sister and was created by Professor Tanamizu with the power to sense the emotions of other living creatures. Helena is Kazik's wife who tries to look out for him while he's off on assignments. Adolf Haas is a man who belongs to a robot hate group who they're called the KR, but while the anime kind of tones this down a bit for reasons I guess is the fact that it was on Netflix. But in the manga, it's pretty clear they are standing for, at the risk of making sure to say it's monetized, the cold cut cans, we'll say that. That's very clear. It's very clear.
Of all the other Tezuka manga they're going to reference in Pluto, I can't believe they referenced Adolf.
Listen, I didn't expect the anti-robot organization to be a legit fucking parallel to, a certain World War II faction, but here we are.
Yeah. So Adolf Haas belongs to that robot hate group and wants revenge on Kazik for murdering his brother. Professor Hoffman is the creator of the alloy Zeronium and is the scientist who created Kazik. Paul Duncan is a bitter old music composer who takes in North Number 2 as his butler. And Brow 1589 is a robot criminal who is the only robot publicly known to have ever broken the 3 laws of robotics to murder a human. And also, while I haven't seen this, actually confirmed anywhere, I have seen it speculated that he's supposed to be Pluto's reinterpretation of the Blue Knight from Astro Boy. And if you want to know who the Blue Knight is, he's basically like a robot revolutionary who believes that robots should live separately from humanity and kind of occasionally clashes with Astro Boy over their beliefs. So, if that's the case, it's really wild that Urasawa basically decided to make him into Hannibal Lecter for some reason.
Because he's now Urasawa. Look, one of the reasons I love Naoko Urasawa is one of his basic, I want to write a story, is that he likes to go to murder mysteries. That's why I like him.
That's why I like him too.
That's not a complaint. But it's of course this guy would Silence of the Lambs. Look at it.
I mean, now that you've directly, compared Brow to fucking Hannibal Lecter, I'm like, I can fucking see it. And I hope this was channeled in this guy's performance. If not, I will be sorely disappointed.
Oh, you can definitely tell that's what he was channeling.
I hope that's not. I hope that's true.
I remember reading the manga, and it's this is Clarice talking to Hannibal Lecter ass stuff going on here. I don't know what it's like to
I
kill somebody.
love it.
Better go talk to someone who does.
What's great is Silence of the Lambs is one of my favorite films too. Like, I'm a fucked up individual, guys. Thanks.
So
Silence of the Lambs and Monster. God, I'm a fucked up young woman. Holy shit.
Alright, so I'm actually going to lift off Who's Playing 2 in reverse order because the last one is definitely a doozy. So pre Brow 1589, we have Sungwon Cho. For Paul Duncan, we have Rob Bottina. For Professor Hoffman, we have Michael St. Nicholas. For Adolf Haas, we have Nolan North. For Helena, we have Mara Dunant. For Uran, we have Lisa Raymond. For Professor Johnny Meason, we have Mike Pollock. And playing Dr. Tenma, of all people, we have Keith David. So, Sungwon Cho is playing such characters as Yoda with Agretzko, Kong in Wrecking of Kings, and most recently to do with Tumblr Sexy Man, Senshi from Duelists in Dungeon.
I gotta get. Andrew and I are behind on Delicious in Dungeon, but Senshi's a good boy. He's a great boy.
You gotta catch up. You gotta get to the certified Yuri moment.
Oh no! How many episodes am I in? Maybe how are we? Maybe 6. Hold on. Now I gotta remember. I think it was. Oh god, we are 6 episodes in.
Okay, you definitely gotta catch up. It's gotten pretty wild. So continuing down the list, Rob Bottina is playing such characters as Roadbuster in Transformers: Dark of the Moon, and Fox and Pumpkin in Yakitori: Soldiers of Misfortune. Michael St. Nicholas has played such characters as Juicy Matsu in Mr. Osamatsu, Zealous and Slayers, and circling back around to Urasawa, he was Detective Sook in Monster. Nolan North doesn't have much in the way of anime credits, but let's be real, you definitely know him as like one of the biggest voice actors in video games and works on animation, which makes him a pretty big pull when he's played such characters as Superboy in Young Justice, Desmond Miles in the Assassin's Creed franchise, and of course Nathan Drake from the Uncharted franchise. Mara Junot has played such characters as yeah, of course it's Deadpool. Mara Junot has played such characters as Princeton, Black Clover, Thor the King, Online Pokemon Horizons, and what I probably know her best for, Lisa in Genshin Impact. Lisa Raymond has played such characters as Tsuri in Ascendance of the Bookworm, Emma Verde in Love Live Nizisaki, and Kurumi in Look Earth Recoil. Mike Pollock has played such characters as Deuce from F and Promare, Hans von Sect in Legends of Galactic Heroes and Ueteze, and has, of course, been the primary voice actor of Dr. Eggman in the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise since the 2000s. And as for Keith David, like, look, I can list these 3 or 4 small anime roles he's done, but I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. Like, this guy...
No, don't fucking lie to everybody, Jack.
Yeah, this guy isn't an anime voice actor. He's one of the biggest voice actors in Western animation and probably one of the most well-known voice actors of all time, period. Like, he's also had a pretty successful screen career, too, so, like, he's definitely up there with people like Mark Hamill or Tara Strong in terms of, like, everyone knows who this guy is.
He's even done Navy commercials.
Yep.
Yeah.
Celebration.
He's that prominent.
Yeah, but specific to animation, he's played such characters as Spawn in the Spawn animated series from the 90s, Dr. Facilier in Princess of the Frog, The Frame King in Adventure Time, and most important to me, my boy Goliath from Gargoyles, who I'm pretty sure has awakened something in every single person who's heard his voice. Like,
So, I have to say this. It's fucking... I said this before at the beginning, but now I'm going to slightly change it because I forgot about this sequel. It's fucking wild having goddamn Nathan Drake, Dr. Eggman, and goddamn Goliath in your fucking anime dub. Where the hell are we right now, boys?
Also, it's not a voice acting role, but I do want to give a shout out to his greatest achievement, which is being co-responsible for the fist fight in They Live, the greatest fist fight in the history of cinema. It is like 10 minutes long, and it's so good. You just, like, put on the fucking sunglasses. No, and then they fight for 10 straight minutes. It's beautiful.
Listen, I didn't think I would hear Keith David in some prominent animation roles in just the span of like 6 months. Because you have fucking Pluto and you also have Hazbin Hotel right now. So,
I'm still trying to wrap my head around how this happened. Like, literally the best guess I could think of is that, well, like, Keith David's probably in his 60s, so, like, he's old enough that, maybe he watched the original Astro Boy as a kid. Like, that might check out.
I would love to see how that how they fucking got Keith David of all people in here. Holy shit!
I'll be honest. They might have simply said, "Mr. David, we have a role for you," and it's like, "Oh, this rules! Yeah, I definitely want to play this guy."
He genuinely seems like, yeah, fuck it, I'll do it. Hell yeah, let's go. The same is probably true for Nolan North, because you do not know him for animation, really. It's primarily video games. So...
Nolan in particular, like, he stands out. It's like, oh, you wanted to be in this.
Oh,
like,
no,
this is
100%.
This is way outside of what you usually do. You want it. Like, he's probably like, I hear Netflix got Pluto. He's like calling his agent. I hear Netflix got Pluto. Can you get me on a list somewhere?
Can
like,
I
want to be in
roster?
this.
And then, like, Mike Pollock, yeah, he's very well known across the sphere anyway. But Mike Pollock is always a fucking delight. Like, let's be real. But having all three of these gentlemen in this show is fucking insane.
Alright, so how should we start this conversation?
Oh god, how should we?
I will just say...
Go ahead, Hardy.
No, I think out of all these performances and out of all these characters, surprisingly, I think my favorite is Ochani Mizu. Because Mike Pollock is able to swap
really good.
seamlessly with Keith David. Just watching these two go back and forth. There's a clip that I actually suggested for the Best of English Anime Dubs Twitter account. They played it. And everyone was like, oh man, Dr. Eggman and Spawn are having a conversation. This is so cool. And every time those two are on the screen together or they're sharing time together, it's just, in my opinion, some of the best material in the entire show.
Oh no, yeah, because their interactions in particular kind of come down to a battle of morals and ethics, which turned into a very interesting, complicated conversation, because Dr. Tenma's work and what he's done to effectively create the perfect AI brain combats with Ochani Mizu's compassion for robots in a way. And especially because now that I have a bit more context of Astro Boy, it makes a lot more sense with Tenma basically rejecting Adam, effectively his pseudo son that he created to replace his actual son. So it makes a lot of sense there. But no, their interactions are fucking phenomenal. It was probably some of the more intense back and forth throughout the course of the show.
Yeah, I really do. Yeah, I really do like these two a lot. Like, like Keith David did a really excellent job of portraying a man who's like, very outwardly stoic and aloof, but is also a lot more arrogant than he lets on. Like, especially in his introduction where he kind of talks about what sort of emotions he thinks would compromise a perfect robot. Just Keith really nailed it there. And in general, I do find it, and in general, just talking about this version of Dr. Tenma, I do find it kind of interesting that he's played a lot more sympathetically here than in other incarnations of Astro Boy, because you kind of see him, mostly in this show, as a bit of a grieving parent, which is definitely an interesting angle. Because it makes it very easy to forget that, the way you're first kind of allude to this guy's existence is when Adam talks about how he sold him to the circus, so, yeah.
Yeah, I find Keith's portrayal very interesting. Kind of piggyback off of what you're saying, Jet, is the vibe I got from Keith's Tenma was kind of one of solitude and in a way loneliness, which adding it to like the grieving parent, which is again an interesting angle to go about. Like, it just makes for a very I wouldn't say aloof, but someone who's a little more subdued in a way, or like mentally he's a very intelligent man, but he's seen and done some shit, and at this point he's like, there's a line in towards the end of the show where it's like, if what I do makes me a devil, then so be it. And that line, like, I'm paraphrasing, but that gave me chills. Because he's done and seen a lot of things. And he's just like, you know what? To hell with everything. If this makes me a villain, fuck it. That's fine. Call it like you see
yeah, it is kind of wild that when you really sit back and think about it, like, pretty much everything that happens in this show is his fault, technically.
Technically, yes. He is the reason that this show exists, or specifically this arc in Astro Boy exists. Thanks, Tenma. Thanks, Keith David. We love you. Bastard.
Yeah, and talking a little bit more about the performance, I also really liked how Keith handled the big scene where he's talking with Adam, where he's kind of like talking with Adam in a flashback about what happened in his day, and just talking about their day, and then kind of gradually revealing what happened to his real son, and the way Adam's personality and taste are different from his, and even without saying as much outright, you can definitely tell that Tenma like resents Adam for not being a good enough replacement, and Keith got that across perfectly. It was a really powerful moment.
See, I think that's interesting because the tone I got from that wasn't strictly him resenting Adam. It was like, I can't make an AI good enough to be a real person.
Yeah.
Who is flawed. And I can't make a robot boy who's going to act like my son because I can't make a robot who's going to be like casually rebellious and snotty like an actual child is. And like it almost felt like he seemed more like a thing I find interesting about this is like, yeah, he's not a great parent, but it feels like a lot of what's driving him is kind of like it's his recognition of his own flaws. Like, I'm the problem here, not Astro.
Yeah.
On some level. Like, I think, I what is it? I have two, his performance is great. I have two thoughts that came to mind when I was watching this. One, it's something that I actually got onto because an artist I like had been watching the show, and she really likes Dr. Tenma. Going back to like older, like she watched the 2003 show and she was like, oh, this guy's really interesting. I like him. And a thing she pointed out, it's something I think is interesting about this, is that this version of Dr. Tenma seems very autism coded. And the thing that kind of stands out is he has a bit where he's talking about like, I'm good at designing robots because robots are not born with emotions. They have to figure it out from how humans act. And that's how I behave. Like that's how I had to get through the world. And that's a pretty heavy, like, yeah, that's what it's like being around neurotypical people when you're not. Like, that's a skill you gotta fucking learn because no one else is gonna explain it to you. You just gotta figure it out.
That's interesting.
I definitely feel there, man.
Yeah, like, so I thought that was interesting, and that's something that I think, maybe not, I don't know if it was conscious, but I feel like David's performance, like, he played into that, which I thought was really good. And the only other pertinent thing I have is that I think I was watching some part of this. It might have been the scene where he's having, like, dinner with Adam. And just realizing, Keith David is the greatest actor who's ever lived. How about that? All right, cool. Glad I sorted that one out. He's so good here. He's so authentically sad. And it helped, as dumb as it sounds, I think it helps. Keith David, he's getting on in years. You can hear a little bit of his age in his voice if you're used to what he like sounded like, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And there's just there's a weariness to it that I think really helps with the character. It also just helps that like there's a reason he's been hired for so much VO work over the years. He has a great voice.
Oh, 100%.
If you watch this show on good speakers, you just hear his voice fill the audio track, and it's like, this is amazing. I could listen to this man.
It's like butter.
Yeah,
it's smooth like
butter.
Like
I said, I'm pretty sure Goliath is awakened something in everyone who's heard that voice.
Goliath was
Like-
my childhood.
Look-
Gargoyles was my Gargoyles
No,
was my
look.
childhood.
Look, man, look, anime fans, do you like sad old men? Is there nothing hotter to you than a sad old man? Well, guess what? Not only do we have a sad old man, but he sounds really hot when he's sad, too.
We did it, Reddit.
Where is Dr. Tenma's Tumblr sexy man art? Tumblr needs to wise up.
I feel like he's a little too morally ambiguous for that, but like I don't know what the standard is.
Damn it.
Okay, I mean then again, Reagan's a thing, but like I don't know. I don't know. I feel like Reagan's a much better father figure than Tenma is.
Reagan's just kind of a crummy dude. Tenma's a little evil, probably. A little bit.
All right. So getting back to these two, I guess we could talk a little bit about Uran and Helena.
Did Hardy get to have some words aside from his love of their dead?
Well, I've already said what I wanted to say.
Oh, and I'll just just like Mike's great. Like
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever heard a bad Mike Pollock performance. Like he's great here. Like perfect casting.
Yeah, like this really perfect like kindly grandpa performance. I especially like that whole like little montage in episode like 3 or 4 where he's like taking care of a barely functioning robot dog, and it really shows how.
Yeah.
That's so.
He has a lot of compassion and sincerity to Ochani Mizu, and I think it's a very, very nice touch.
So, that's a really nice old man. Definitely need more of that in anime.
Good grandpas. We love good grandpas.
Yeah. So, getting into Lisa and Mara, I'm not as familiar with Lisa Raymold, but I really did like her performance as Uran. Like, she does a really good job of getting across all the mannerisms of a little kid, and she bounces off of Adam pretty well, especially with Uran kind of being the brother of the two of them. So, like, it's a pretty fun performance.
She's like the correct level of bratty. It's really delightful.
It's very Uran is very like precocious, but she also has, and I think what Lisa ended up excelling with is those softer moments that Uran has, particularly after Adam dies, quote unquote. She has such softer moments for a good chunk of the show, and it's just with her programming and her ability to like sense fear and sadness in living beings, it gives her also a lot of compassion and empathy in a way to living creatures, and it's very interesting to see that being portrayed in a robotic little girl. So I think Lisa was phenomenal with those parts.
I definitely like the whole thing in episode 3 where she ends up meeting Pluto, or the current body he's in, and the whole conversation they have about what the concept of death means to humans versus what it means for robots. And I really like Lisa's delivery there; was really great. It's basically the only scene besides the finale where we kind of get a sense of what Pluto's actually like when he's on a raging spear of vengeance, and how all he really wants is to give back to nature and make a field of flowers. It's very sad.
Yeah.
I also really liked how she handled that one little scene where like she's on the bridge with a boy who's like about to jump off of it, and no way she kind of empathized with all the sadness he's experiencing over being bullied. I thought that scene was really great. Did you have anything you want to add, Hardy?
From here on out, I'm just going to pop in with various opinions.
Okay. So, all right. Getting into Mara as Helena, I really liked her here. Like, my only point of reference for her is Lisa in Genshin Impact, which is a performance I like, but perhaps different reasons than in this show. Let's just say I've seen a lot of spicy Lisa, and we'll leave it at that.
I have no context for Genshin Impact, so I know nothing about Mara. But her Helena is, because I got confused for a minute, and then it got clarified for me in the show. I couldn't tell that Mara was a robot at first. Again, I don't know context, and considering how technology and robotics have in this world have evolved so much that the distinction between human and robot is actually a significant plot point in this show. It's very interesting because Helena becomes this empathetic person, essentially, and especially later on in the show, to the point where I think Sochani Mizu was talking to Dr. Tenma and saying, no, maybe it was Hoffman, who said that her empathy seems like it would be something very intriguing to study. The fact that she's very empathetic towards anyone, whether it's robot or human, and how her emotions have developed to an extent that is very human-like. But I think Mara portrays a lot of those aspects of Helena's character very well.
Yeah, but I agree. I think she does a really good job of helping Helena come off as a pretty supportive figure in Gazette's life, and the two of them have pretty good chemistry when they're together, so you can definitely tell that the relationship is working mostly, even when they're pretty far apart from each other. And it definitely helps add to the show. I also really like how she handled everything following Gazette's death, where you can very clearly tell that Helena's kind of going through the motions of pretending to be cheerful, and Mara handles that really well, and especially that whole scene with Dr. Tenma where she finally breaks down. I thought she was really great there. I also liked her last scene with Adam in the finale, where she decides to confront him about what's going on with her missing memories, and Adam decides to lie to her about it because he doesn't want to, make her, re-experience the loss of her kid on top of, already having her husband dead. So, so that was definitely a pretty complex scene, and I thought that Mara did a really good job there.
Man, all I want is good things for Helena at this stage.
Well, she at least has the advantage that she survived, which, it's an Urasawa manga. That's sometimes the best you can hope for.
Okay. To be fair to Urasawa here, he is working off of a pre-existing story, and for the most part, the kill count is mostly limited to who died in the original story.
I know.
Point still stands. The point is still there. This isn't Urasawa work. You'd be lucky if you made it to the end of Urasawa's story. You're damn lucky.
All right. I guess next up we could talk about Noah North as Adolf, which
fucking
hell.
This fucking guy.
This fucking
it's so
asshole.
surreal to think about talking about Noah North in an anime.
Not only surreal, but being this piece of shit.
Noah's great here. He does a really great job of making this guy come off as very mild-mannered, while using that nature to just barely hide his bigotry towards robots. How he doesn't like the idea of getting a robot made like his neighbors, or how he seems to know an awful lot about discrimination laws and what's allowed to be said in public. Like a lot of actual bigots. That's perfect there. I also want to say, also when we are talking about him, I do want to give a brief shout out to Steve Kramer as a Grand Wizard. He's great.
Yep. That other asshole. God damn. But a fun thing with Nolan's character is he's not just strongly portrayed as the bigot, but the second everybody the anti-robot organization like turns on him and wants him effectively dead because Adolf just wants revenge. He becomes so small. Like, you can feel the second he and Gizek are in his office, you can, like, hear it and feel it in Nolan's performance that he just instantly becomes so small of a person. Because he's like, oh, I'm a big shot. I'm believing in this and this. And then all of a sudden he's threatened. He's like, fuck. And you can see him, like, shrink inside of himself.
You know, now that you mention it, you know what it reminds me of? I'm not owned. I'm not owned. Shrinks into a corn cob.
Oh my god.
Yeah. But yeah, I really do. I really do think that Nolan handles a lot of these aspects really well. Especially a lot of these scenes where Kazik, like, once Kazik gets hired to protect him, where you can just like really hear it in his voice that this guy just like really wants to stick it to him, but but he knows he can't right now.
He's like, fuck. He's just wants so bad to get his revenge, and then he's like, god damn it. He's right here. Fuck. It's great. His interactions with Gazette are, like, also very interesting because we go back to a lot of the moral and ethical arguments and themes for the show itself. And so the dynamics between Adolf and Gazette are actually another good, strong dynamic and back and forth as well.
It's like the whole deal with Adolf's brother. With Adolf is that that's before he wants revenge for his brother, and for a lot of the series where he just kind of like given the vague idea that Adolf's brother was like a really terrible criminal who committed some horrible crime, and for a long time we don't know what that is. But then like as we get the revelation that Kazik was the one who murdered him, so we learn what actually happened, and it turns out this was a guy who went around like killing robot children. So, needless to say, he probably kind of had it coming.
Yeah, not just any robot children. Eventually, though, because I was just like, "Oh no, is this going where I think it's going?" And this is why. And I'm like, "Oh yeah, it is."
Yeah. I mean, if some dude killed your kid for like bigoted reasons, I imagine that would be pretty upsetting.
Oh yeah,
Bigoted
100%.
reasons for any reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
For any reason,
Yeah.
but
That whole revelation was really, that whole revelation was pretty wild, and I'm really impressed how well Urasawa committed to that. It was great. But for as much fun as it is seeing Adolf get owned, I do kind of appreciate that he does kind of get a bit of an arc, and it does kind of eventually learn to put aside his hatred of Gazek because it means more to him to protect his family, which I'm a little dicey about, but I think it does mostly work for the purposes of the story. And one thing I did like that was something that actually wasn't in the original manga, but it's something they added here, I guess for a little extra effect, which is his last scene with Kazik, where Kazik's asking him about asking him about like what it means to hate, and if hatred ever really goes away. And how Adolf tells him he's not sure, but the only thing he knows is that he doesn't really want to hate Gazette anymore. I thought that scene was pretty compelling.
no, yeah, and it ends up being a very important moment for Adam later on as well.
Yep. Yeah. Alright, next up, Marcos into Nicholas is Dr. Hoffman. I like him. He comes off as a pretty likable dude.
I love it when he plays a big nerd. He's so good at playing big nerds.
Can I just say, because this is, I think, maybe the first recasting from Monster. I don't remember if Mike Pollock was in Monster or not offhand. but I know the rest of them were not. But Michael Sinter-Nicholas was in Monster, and can I just tell a quick story about him?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I was at a convention. Which one was it? I want to say it was Youmacon years ago, and I have a single volume of Monster from the original Viz release, like back in the day, and because there's nothing else of Monster, I have been using that to get signatures from the cast for years. And when I met Michael Sinter-Nicholas that day, he's like, oh my god, only thing I remember from this is I got shot a lot. And then he starts singing and dancing in his chair, going, shots, 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 shots. And he signed the front of the volume, and all he wrote under that was shots. I'm like, oh, this is great. That volume of manga's in a box somewhere right now. I need to. Our office is not set up in our new apartment yet. But I had to tell that story because Michael Sinter-Nicholas is a delight. But no, yes, his Dr. Hoffman is such a fun little nerd, and I love it.
Yeah, it's great. He does a really great job of coming off as like a pretty friendly face. Like, yeah, and does a pretty good job of trying to look out for Gazette and, give him advice when it comes to navigating human emotions and stuff like that. And I also kind of appreciate that, like, as soon as this guy was presented with the possibility that there was some kind of government cover-up with Gazette's memories, like, he immediately went to confront his bosses. Like, that's a good dude.
Oh, he's a very good dude. Because even Hoffman didn't understand why, or for what memories or for what reason Gizik's memories got effectively tampered with. So he had no clue about him murdering Adolf's brother, nothing. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, did you guys have anything else you want to add about him?
I'm good.
He's great.
Okay, moving on to Rob Martina as Paul Duncan. I also really like this one a lot. Like, he does a really great job of just playing a very crotchety old fart.
No, yeah. He was good as a crotchety old man. But I just want to say, like, him with the combination of him and North Number 2, it's... Because that whole story arc was in the first episode, in the back half of it, right? Yep. And it was a very compelling story, and it kind of, I think, is what helped set the tone for the whole show. So, I found the back and forth between Paul Duncan and North Number 2 to be very compelling, very insightful, and in some ways tragic, especially given Paul Duncan's backstory, right? It was such a very, very intriguing little arc in the show, and I was very sad when the episode was done, and I'm like, damn, all right, now we don't get crotchety old man no more.
Basically, if you're a robot in this series not named Astro Boy, you're probably not going to have a very fun time.
You're going to have a horrible time.
So Pluto as a whole, for me, is, it's the Amagia fault meme, this hole was made for me. But even more specifically, the North Number 2 storyline is like an even more specific hole made for me. It's got sad old people. It's got like the lonely and bitter coming together and finding solace in friendship, in their mutual loneliness. It has the humanity of beings that are not human. It's perfect. It's like they wrapped it up in a little bow for me. And I love Rob's performance so much. He is so angry. he is so filled with so much venom and hatred about just how his life has turned out because he has achieved so much success and none of it has made him happy. He's just all he can see is all the ways that life didn't go right for him. And him like getting North Number Two and just eventually warming up to him with North Number Two, like for maybe the first time in his life, like does something for him with no strings attached, and just like I did a thing for you because you seem like you need this. It is so beautiful, and it makes him at the end telling North Number Two that you don't need to sing right now. You can come home, home, and it breaks my fucking heart.
Yeah.
Also, I would like to congratulate whoever at MAPPA had a reputation for being the weirdo who really liked drawing hands and clearly got put on all the scenes of like Paul Duncan having to find things. There's a shot of him like reaching for his teacup in there that is so lovingly rendered that I had him up like, this is why I like animation. This is
amazing.
This is beautiful. this is what I want out of life. Yes.
This is. Yep. I made this whole. It was just for me. This is my.
Sorry,
whole
the weirdo at M2. Let me get my.
Clearly. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's a pretty easy mistake to make. I think Bap actually was supposed to be partially attached to this originally, but
I'm assuming when Mr. Producer Man, his name escapes me, left Mappa to form M2. The project just went.
Yeah. I think originally it was supposed to be a collaboration between M2 and Mappa, but I guess at some point Mappa signed off because it's Mappa. So
I'm sorry, guys. We got like 18,000 shows in the can. You better do this one on your own. Sorry.
That's great.
They'll come out faster without us. Trust me.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really did like Rod's performance a lot. You can definitely tell through his delivery that this is a man who's just like very clearly bitter about being past his prime as a musician, and how much he takes a lot of that out on North Number Two. Especially like his delivery during the scene where he flips out over the idea of North Number Two wanting to learn the piano and Flew Like a Machine can't possibly replicate its art. It's a really powerful scene.
Yeah, I gotta be honest. That scene hit a lot differently now than it did when I first read it in like 2006 or something. Like,
yeah, especially now, given all the recent AI discussions. Like, okay, like to be clear, within the context of this show, like robots are basically just like another race of humans, but it definitely does hit it. But it definitely does hit a lot differently these days.
Mm-hmm.
And like you guys mentioned, I definitely did like how much you could tell Rod's tone kind of softened up as he like finally starts opening up to North Number Two, and it really does make that whole final scene all the more tragic. It's very sad. And
yeah, it's that whole story arc was just so sad.
Yeah.
And
then last on this list of characters we have Brown 150 to 1589 Sungwon Cho. To which there actually is a pretty fun story about this one. Like apparently Sungwon Cho has actually been a pretty big fan of this manga for years. And he actually mentioned on some social media that he had actually fan-dubbed a few of Brown's scenes back in the day, so you can say he's quite literally been preparing for this his entire career.
My god!
The heartwarming story in anime in the last 12 months has been Sungwon Cho. Dubbing, getting cast as the actual version of a character he fan-dubbed a decade and a half ago.
What the fuck?
It warms my heart so much.
I love that.
Especially because he is terrifying.
Oh, so the Hannibal Lecter comparison you said earlier? Yeah.
He understands the thing that makes Hannibal Lecter powerful is Hannibal Lecter understands that he doesn't matter that he's in a prison, he is the one in charge here. And Brow has that same feeling about him, and Sungwon just absolutely look at it's like he's telling it's like, yeah, they put up all these barricades, like I can't fucking move, but like they're still terrified of me. Isn't that great?
It gives off very big I'm not trapped in here with you, you're trapped in here with me vibes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then at the end, he just walks out.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, and he's
Oh,
just
no,
like,
that's
that's great.
that's almost the best part. It's like, oh, he could have escaped whenever. He just didn't have a reason to. Yeah, just there's a teddy bear in America that needs to be killed. See you later, guys.
Yeah, I really I really did love Sogan's show's performance here. He does a really great job of making his character sound so deeply unsettling, and it's really fun watching it bounce off of every character he interacts with. And I also really like just how good he is at making Brow feel like he's the smartest guy in the room whenever he's talking to anyone else, and just how much he seems to, and just like how much more he seems to know than anybody else, and how you can never quite tell whether or not his intentions are sinister, which is just, it's so great.
It's like if Sideshow Bob wasn't so incompetent.
Yeah,
That's an interesting comparison.
yeah. It definitely makes his last few seasons of the show pretty interesting, especially like his whole last interaction with Adam, where Brow like somehow finds himself, feeling pretty touched by the warmth of Adam's heart, and it really is weird considering how sinister his character felt to this point, that you can actually somehow tell that Brow like really means it when he's like talking about how warm Adam's heart feels. It was really sweet in its
Yeah.
own way. And it really is just kind of extremely funny that somehow this guy, of all characters, just somehow ended up being one of the most heroic characters in the whole show. Because when push came to shove, he decided to go for the good old doohickey method of voicing his political opinions. So,
Hooray.
yeah. To be fair, that teddy bear had it coming.
Yeah. Fuck that teddy bear.
All right. So are we good for this batch of characters?
I think so. Yes, they're a lot of fun.
All right. So for our next batch of characters, we've got 5 out of the 7 most advanced robots on Earth who all end up getting targeted by Pluto for their role in the 39th Central Asian War and the destruction of Persia. So, you know the old saying that all your faves are war criminals? Yeah, that applies to nearly every character in this section, sans one.
Whoops.
Unsurprisingly, that angle was something Urasawa came up with, since in the original version of this story, they were there all more or less to be victims, and in this version, they all have a lot more presence, which kind of makes them a lot more interesting, and makes it all the more sadder that none of them make it out of the story alive.
Yeah, it's depressing.
It's also pretty wild. It's also pretty wild because I actually did read the original story a few months ago, and funny enough, all of them die in the exact same order they did in the original, which is that's incredible.
Really? Okay.
I don't think we'll end up bringing. Oh, we might bring this up in the bit. I think my favorite part about the changeover from the original to the new one is that having the antagonist, like having the inciting sort of person, be like from Iran is just from the original. Like that's not something he made up. That was like, yeah, no, it's clearly like the deposed Shah. I think basically for all intents and purposes, it's like wild.
That is very interesting.
Yep. So anyway, we've got Mont Blanc, North Number 2, Brando, Hercules, and Espelon. Mont Blanc is a robot from Switzerland who works to protect nature. North Number 2 is a robot who becomes the butler of Paul Duncan and wants to learn how to play music, but is haunted by his memories of the war. Brando is a famous fighter who lives for his family, and Hercules is his rival and old war buddy who believes he leads in imitating human behavior. And lastly, Espelon is a pacifist who decided to dodge the war draft and became ridiculed for his decision not to fight, but ended up taking in a bunch of war orphans and becoming their adopted parent. To which, definitely very interesting. They decided to just, fully go into talking about draft dodging again, considering the time period this show is clearly meant to critique. It's just incredible.
Whoops.
No, there's definitely no whoops here. Like, like I forgot to mention earlier, but like literally, this manga was written like from 2003 to 2008. So like, Urasawa was writing this like literally while during like peak war on terror stuff. So like,
Oh, that's true. You're right.
He clearly had a lot to work with here.
There's definitely a lot of material you can pull from. Inspiration, boys and girls.
Anyway, playing my block, we have Keith Farley. Playing North number 2, we have Patrick Seitz. Playing Brando, we have Adrian Basada. Playing Hercules, we have Richard Epcar. And playing Escalon, we have Keith Silverstein. Keith Farley doesn't have much in the way of anime credits, but has played a few video game characters such as Arno Barodai in Star Wars Squadrons, Leviathan in Chocobo GP, and Thane Krios in Mass Effect 2 and 3. But
Oh, that's who this is! Okay. I know, I like playing Mass Effect.
okay.
See, I also primarily know Keith David as fucking Captain Anderson, but here we are.
Patrick Seitz explains his characters as Dio Brando in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Endeavor in My Hero Academia, and Wolfgang Grimmer in Monster. Adrian Pasada is more of a Western animation voice actor and has played such characters as Captain America in Black Panther, Hugo Strange in Young Justice, and Iron Man in Marvel's Adventure Assemble. Richard Epcar has played such characters. Oh, nice.
Yeah. Anyways, continue.
Continuing. Richard Epcar has played such characters as Old Joseph in Joseph's Bizarre Adventure Stardust Crusaders, Inspector Lunge in Monster, and Bato in Ghost in the Shell Citadel Complex. And the reason I mentioned that one last is because Hercules is basically just Bato without the weird cyborg eyes. Like, it's literally just Bato.
Yeah, it is Bato. It is.
Same attitude and everything.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
And lastly, Keith Silverstein has played such characters as Hisoka in Hunter x Hunter in 2011, and in Dora Hidoro, and the titular monster of Monster, Johann Liebert.
Epsilon.
Fuck yeah!
I can't believe Naoko Urasawa looked at Greatest Robot on Earth, saw the kind, loving caretaker of orphans, and decided, I'm gonna recast him as my child. That's what I'm going to do.
Oh, it's so fun. I love it. It is... because...
He has a warped sense of humor, and I appreciate that.
Yeah, so obviously, as Jet has clearly pointed out, 3 out of the 6 in this group... Oh, no, 3 out of the 5, excuse me, of this group were in Monster previously. And it's so fun and so fascinating to see these reprisals, and especially for some very interesting characters. Like, Richard as Hercules is effectively, like, the Bato knockoff is great. Fucking, Patrick Seitz playing Gentle North number 2 is in its way a subtle nod to Grimmer as well. And then, the obvious, you have Epsilon, who is 100% knockoff fucking Johann Liebert.
Yeah.
That's my favorite part. I'm like, oh, this is perfect. This makes me so happy.
Alright, so I feel like we could probably just go down this list in order. We could probably just go down this list in death order.
Do it.
Yup.
Keith probably has the least amount of screen time as Mont Block, but I did like the few scenes we got with him. I thought he did a really good job of making him come off as like a pretty gentle guy who's, just very clearly haunted by all the horrible things he did in wartime.
Oh, 100%.
I especially liked his delivery during the one flashback he has with Hercules, So with Hercules and Brando, where he's just talking about like how they came to Persia to liberate robots from the yoke of oppression, and so like and just questioning like what it is they're actually here fighting for. And it's also an especially powerful scene again. So, again, knowing this is referencing a lot of the war on terror stuff. Especially because this is definitely a sentiment you would hear a lot from soldiers coming back from the Middle East. So it definitely really hits hard in hindsight.
Yeah, it hits very hard in hindsight.
And did you have anything you want to add, Amon?
Like you said, Keith suffers from just like his character. It opens with him dying, and he only shows up in flashbacks a couple of times. He gives a good performance, just like compared to like the other other four people in this group. Just he's good. Just like I have less to
Yeah,
say about.
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, there's not a lot to say because he doesn't really have a lot of screen time. Yeah.
His character gets a good introduction with his just head sitting there with those trees slammed into the ground next to it. That's creepy.
Yeah.
I like that.
All right. Okay, that's fair. Definitely a lot more to say about Patrick Stars and Source Number Two. I figured Patrick was probably going to get casted somewhere in this stuff if he was directing it, and this was definitely a very interesting place to put him.
Oh, 100%.
I appreciate that in Monster he cast himself as a character who makes me cry, and here he cast himself as a character that makes me cry.
like the parallel, Grimmer is a very different character, but a lot of character traits of Grimmer and North Number 2 are actually very parallel with each other. So I think it's very fitting for Patrick to take on North Number 2, because you have North Number 2, who is this creation created to like war and destruction and things like that, but he wants a more peaceful existence. And then you have Grimmer, who, if y'all are not aware of the story of Monster, it's convoluted as shit, but just go with me for a second. Grimmer is this orphaned who, as an orphan child, was essentially like brainwashed to be this like cruel cruel beast and like a murderer, but he wants a more gentle existence too, and both of them also are trying to figure out emotions. It's such a really interesting parallel, and it's very fitting that I think Patrick plays North Number 2 in this case.
Yeah, I definitely do like both those characters a lot. I really like how like quiet and subdued Patrick's North Number Two comes off as, and I especially like that while it's not like PTSD in the traditional sense, you can definitely tell that North Number Two is just like clearly very haunted by the memories of war and like also about murders he's committed, and especially as something that is like pointed out repeatedly in the show, robots are built who have permanent memories, meaning that they basically don't forget about anything that happens to them unless someone's tampered with them. So North Number Two, like quite literally, remembers everything he's done in the war, like every robot he's killed, and it's very clearly haunting him. And
Yeah, like there's that moment where Paul Duncan catches him as he's like wandering around at night, and he's effectively North Number 2 is effectively quote unquote asleep, but he's making these like groans and noises, and Paul Duncan is like, "Are you dreaming right now?" Like it's very interesting. Like a lot of the aspects of the robots, but clearly he's haunted by it.
Like North Number Two gets a lot of really good lines in his arc, but I especially really do. Like the whole bit where he's kind of going over with Paul Duncan about his memories of the war. And the whole line he gives about "I don't want to be long on the battlefield," like that one really hits hard.
No, yeah, like he wants a more of an existence to what he was built and programmed to do. It's very interesting.
Yeah. I also really liked the. I also really liked the bit where where like after he like revealed to Paul Duncan that like he's kind of that his whole memories of his past and like everything that happened with his mother are kind of like maybe like he doesn't really know the full picture of everything that happened and how he tells him like your memories. Like your memories are better than you think. Like you deserve to remember them, and you deserve to have your dreams, as I deserve to remember mine. And it's just, man, that's really powerful.
Yeah.
How did you feel about it, Amon?
It's beautiful. It's just great, man. Like I already said, I said it earlier when we were talking about Rob. I like this. I love this storyline. It is one of my favorites. Um, and like Patrick cast himself where he needed to, and like he's great. He's
Uh,
beautiful. It's
how did you have anything?
I almost don't know how to talk about it. It's like it's so perfect. I don't know how to explain why. Just like it is.
Uh, yeah, and did you have anything you want to add, Hardy?
No, I did notice that of all the robots in the show, North Number Two is by far the most robotic. He's the one who sounds the least
Yeah.
emotional. But you can tell that there's something, even though he has trouble conveying his emotions more so than the other robots, you can tell that there's definitely something there that he's trying to expand on. And I think Patrick pulls that off really well.
I agree. He does. I agree. He does do a really good job of kind of, like he does come off as a lot more subdued than like everyone else here, but yeah, you can definitely tell that he does have a lot more emotion than kind of appears in first class, and Patrick gets that across really well. And next up, Adrian is Brando.
I think we kind of need to talk about Brando and Hercules together.
Brando goes down like a. I'm about to say, I feel like we kind of need to talk about the two of them together, because they have a very interesting dynamic, but also because like they ended up close to each other. Can I just say Brando went down like a fucking
Oh,
shit,
yeah.
though? Like, goddamn.
Man walked directly into his death in the hopes that he could help others figure it out. Just like goddamn.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I really did like Adrian's Brando a lot. He did a really good job of making Brando come off as like a really down-to-earth family man. Like just a really good, like friendly dad energy. And
It has like a slight youthful tone to it, if that makes sense. That's the vibe I got, was a little bit of a youthful tone, but Family Man definitely is very accurate.
Yeah, I liked his delivery during the bit where he's talking with Kazik about like how he made it his decision to adopt kids, and how that started to make him reconsider how important it was for him to come back from his masters in One Piece. Like how he mentions how like in the old days he didn't really care, he didn't really care too much about his matches and like how injured he got one way or the other. But once he started to once he got children, suddenly all he could think about was getting home in One Piece and how and how he got kids because he how he got kids because he didn't really care about living, and now suddenly all he wants to do is live, and it's a really nice bit.
Yeah. It gives solid motivation to Brando when he decides to, even though he has not a shot in fucking hell of beating Pluto, it gives him something to fight for. And it's very interesting to see that dynamic, and I think Adrian portrays that part of Brando very, very well.
Yeah. I was gonna admit, like Urasawa, it was a real gut punch, and like during Brando's final scene, during Brando's final scene, and where he's like trying to give everyone all the memories of the fight, and all he can think about is his family. Like, how dare you?
Yeah. It's like, damn it! Urasawa, why? You cruel man, you. I love it, but God, you're cruel. And then I think the other part that I love with Brando's character is his dynamic with Hercules. So what Adrian and Richard were able to do when they did share scenes together, because they didn't just share present day ones, they did share a couple flashback scenes together as well. Their dynamic is like, they give me the vibe of like two old drinking buddies just chilling and hanging out. That's the vibe I got from Adrian and Richard's dynamic, honestly.
Yeah, I liked Richard as Hercules a lot. He definitely comes off as a lot more abrasive than the other robots we meet, and you can definitely tell through Richard's performance that like Hercules definitely isn't like clearly can't be bothered with performing as being human in the way a lot of the other robots do, and I really like the way Richard portrays that. But you can also kind of tell that this guy isn't quite as cool as he seems at first glance, and that he does have more going on than he lets on.
The fact that he put his own money into trying to recover Brando's body, that already speaks volumes to Hercules as a character, I think.
Yeah, I also liked his whole little discussion with the Zick episode 2, where how he talks about, while he doesn't really care too much for pretending to be human, everything he experienced in the war kind of has made him a little bit more hesitant about hurting others in his fights. And like how he's kind of slowly started to develop a sense of compassion. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah.
And then I also liked a lot of his scenes with Espelon, specifically because he's the character who kind of comes down on Espelon the hardest for being a pacifist, and kind of and at first you think that he kind of sees what Espelon did as running away, and you can definitely feel a lot of the resentment in Richard's tone whenever the two of them are talking. But as we spend more time with these two characters, we can kind of it becomes pretty clear that what Hercules actually resents is that he had to go to war at all, and all the horrible things he ended up doing, and so while Espelon was clearly right for deciding it wasn't worth it, and like you can definitely tell that Hercules kind of resents that in some way.
No, I I like Richard's performance a lot for kind of the reasons you've been saying. Like he's the robot who feels like he is the most comfortable with just who he is, in the sense that just like, I am a robot. I do robot things. I wrestle.
Mm-hmm.
And he has feelings, but like there's kind of a sense that like, I know what I am. I know what makes me happy.
Yeah.
There. And I don't have a lot of patience for people who fall out too outside of like my idea of how to get through life. Which is, shockingly, he gets along well with another professional wrestler, and less so with the guy who, runs an orphanage. Yeah, that checks out my brain.
That tracks.
Yeah, just I don't think I had too much more to add about Adrian, other than just like I do. Him and his wife and his kids are all really cute. Like I forgot how short his on-screen time is in this show. Like in my brain, like he's around for a little bit longer. Keep in mind, I read Pluto as it was coming out, so it's been like over a decade since I've actually read any of it. So my memory's a little fuzzy. I don't know, but I thought Adrian did a good job of leaving as strong an impact as Brando does, not just for his like sudden denouement, but also just as like, yeah, this guy seems like a really cool dude. It's kind of sad he goes out the way he does.
Yeah.
Again, he went down like a fucking champ, bro.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And then last week, Keith Silverside is Espelon.
AKA Nice Johan.
Oh boy.
man just wants to raise his kids.
I like Hardy's descriptor. Nice Johan.
Yeah. I love this character a lot. Keith does a really good job of making him come off as a lot more gentle in nature in general than a lot more gentle in nature than the other characters. And his whole refusal to fight, which Keith handles really well. And also getting across that as well as the character is like very clearly principled when it comes to his values and what he wants out of life, and I really like the way Keith handles a lot of that. Like you can tell through a lot of his scenes with the group of orphans he's looking after that they mean a lot to him, and Keith gets that across really well. Especially during the whole flashback where he meets a kid named Wasley for the first time after, almost incinerating him.
Yeah.
That scene was definitely a lot.
Yeah, Vesley. I think it is.
I think it was Wasley. Which, shout out to Jeremy Lay. She did a really good job as him.
Yes. It was so good. Now that Hardy said nice Johan, the irony is not lost on me that this Johan lookalike is running a fucking orphanage.
Fun fact, that actually, that detail actually wasn't something Urasawa made up. Even in the original 1960s version, this guy is introduced as caring for orphans.
Yep.
God, but no, I think Keith was one of my favorite performances. Not just my brain Johann Lieber, it's monster, god damn it. First of all, the casting decision there, fucking brilliant, I love it. But what Keith was able to bring to Epsilon is not just a lot of his pacifist, more like his morals and his pacifist mindset, but the fact that he's gentle, the fact that he's very compassionate, the fact that he wants to change the world for the better, and the way he wants to do it is not through war and bloodshed, but through taking care of the world. And that includes caring for those who can't care for themselves, i.e. these orphan children from the war. And it's such a kind, and Epsilon is just such a very kind soul. And Keith just manages to put this, on full display. And I think it was just expertly and brilliantly done, honestly.
I really don't have anything to say, but it's good things about this performance. I also really appreciate the overall stance he showed takes on his sense of pacifism, and how much it sides with him, because let's face it, no one should ever really go to war. And while we are talking about him, I did like that final line from the robot bodyguard Imari Williams was playing, and where he mentioned that Espeland saved his fight for where it really mattered by choosing to fight for someone, and by choosing to fight to save someone instead of fighting to destroy people. And I really like that scene. That was really powerful.
Oh yeah, 100%. Because Epsilon now has something to fight for himself rather than just someone else's cause. It's very impactful when he ends up fighting Pluto the second time.
Especially since that's the first time we ever actually hear Pluto's voice, and I like their whole brief interaction.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I think we're finally good to move on to our villains.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about our villains. So, who the villains exactly are here is going to be interesting to discuss. On the one hand, we have our two primary antagonists, Professor Bula and the titular Pluto. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have the true villains of this story, President Alexander and Dr. Roosevelt, who, for all intents and purposes, are basically just George Bush and Dick Cheney.
Fuck.
Sure, it's Dick Cheney. It's like a robot overlord, but it's Dick Cheney.
I read this when it was coming out. It was not a hard connection to make.
Fuck.
I definitely remember reading this and them expanding on what the war in Persia was like. It's like, oh, it's just Iraq. Oh shit.
Yeah, because I haven't read the manga, but having the context of that fact that Urasawa wrote this in the midst of the war on terror and the Iraq-Iran war, makes so much fucking sense now. God.
Yeah. So for most of the story, we know Professor Bula as a scientist from Persia who also worked closely with Persia's ruler Darius XIV and watched revenge on the world, and especially Thracia, for their roles in destroying Persia and causing the death of his family. However, in reality, he is a robot named Goji who was created by Dr. Tanba and the real Professor Bula to be the perfect robot. But when the real Professor Bula died in the war, Goji was given his memories, and thus believes that he is the real Professor Bula and carries out his hatred for the world and what it did to Persia. And Pluto is, of course, the titular antagonist of this story. And like in the original version of the greatest robot on Earth, he's out to destroy the 7 most powerful robots on Earth. However, while in the original version, he was carrying out the murders on behalf of his creator Goji, who wanted to prove that he could create the greatest robot in the world. In this version, he's carrying them out on Goji's behalf in order to take revenge on them for their roles in the war. And his true identity is Zabula's robot son Zahad. So, meanwhile, President Alexander is the president of Thracia, who goaded the rest of the world into carrying out the destruction on Persia, and claims they're creating quote-unquote robots of mass destruction. So, yeah, again, it's really not remotely subtle what this is referencing. But it was...
Oh, God.
Yeah, but also revealed that he mostly just did it to help expand his own empire, which, again, just totally not resembling any particular Middle Eastern conflicts in particular, just, not at all.
Oh, God. Just the context is just hitting me in the face, and I'm like, motherfuckers. Yeah. Urasawa is never doing things accidental. He's always intentional. And I'm just sitting here, I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, and well, it is important to attribute a lot of that to him. Like, Osamu Tezuka wasn't, Osamu Tezuka had some very clear anti-war stances too. Like, it's all over Astro Boy. It's literally everywhere in that story.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and, moving on, lastly, we've got the real president of Thracia, Dr. Roosevelt, who is an AI created by Thracia to carry out the nation's interests, but he's got his own agenda going on, and he's definitely pretty happy to see that everything burns. You see everything burn if it serves his own interests. So, yeah, Robot Dick Cheney.
Yay!
So,
you'll love to see it.
Yeah, so, anywho, playing Abula, we've got Cameron Nickeron. Playing Pluto, we've got Fred Tatasciore. Playing President Alexander, we've got Kim Van and Huvel, and playing Dr. Roosevelt, we've got Melissa Hutchinson. And we also are going to briefly talk about Pluto's real identity, Zahad, who is played by Sean Rohani.
Sean Rohani.
Sean Rohani, my bad. Yep. So, Cameron Nickeron has played such characters as Tadadori Sanbei and Glepnir, Hanafuda Sakura in Tribe 9, and Alexander Amadeus in The Prince of Tennis 2 U17 World Cup. Fred Tatasciore is another big voice actor in the world of animation and video games, and has played such characters as Deathstroke in Young Justice, Solomon Grundy in the Batman Arkham games, and definitely important to Hardy, Don Corneo in the Final Fantasy VII Remake. Kim Van Huvel has played such characters as Mark Holcroft in Genlock, Cassius in Thermi Romi Novi, and Ken Tomo's father in Bell. Melissa Hutchinson has played such characters as Jojo in Cannon Busters, Kisei in She the Ultimate Weapon and Katie in Yokai Watch, and Sean Rohani has played such characters as Sheeb in Reckoning of Ragnarok, Wana and Okuni in their Chambers, and Mosuke in the 2021 version of Shaman King.
Damn. Alright.
I don't really have a whole lot to say about these characters, to be honest, other than Pluto is basically Fred's Hulk voice with a filter.
Yeah. Vocally, we don't really hear a whole lot of Pluto throughout most of the story. He's just kind of kept this and sort of ambiguous shadowy figure until the final act, which is definitely pretty funny because in the original story, he was just kind of like, a villain of the week with a bit more of like a distinct personality, which is pretty wild.
I feel like it must be very funny to like watch or read this and then read the original, just because like here like who Pluto is the big mystery, and the original like he's on the first page. Like it just starts with like, hey, I have made the greatest robot in the world, Pluto. Here, go kill all the other ones to show that you are the greatest robot in the world.
I find that's interesting that they did that in the manga. I personally like that change, that they don't like show all their cards.
That's an Astro Boy.
Oh, that's an Astro Boy.
That's how Astro Boy starts.
Oh, huh. Well, I'm glad they didn't do that here. Thanks, Urasawa, for that change.
Can't have a murder mystery if you reveal who your murderer is on page 1.
It's very true. It's very true. It lessens the mystery of it. But no, I agree with Hardy. There's not a ton to really talk about with Pluto because he's majority of the time the shadowy figure, or he mostly like yells and like a lot or makes these like monster noises, you know what I mean? But yeah, I will say the moments that we do actually get to hear Fred like portray Pluto, it's very interesting because I'm gonna kind of talk about with Fred and Sean actually the duality of Pluto and Sahid is so intriguing to me, and for Fred's part, he has to portray both sides. The monster that is Pluto, but also the human wanting the robot who just wants to change the world for the better, which is Sahid. It's such an interesting duality that Fred has to portray with very, very little dialogue to it. And I think Fred actually does very, very well with that, to be honest.
I really do like Fred's performance a lot. Like, it's definitely interesting that in a show with so many grounded and human performances, Fred Tatasio kind of goes for like a very deep, growly voice that sounds probably the most like a Saturday morning cartoon villain, which, again, given Pluto's origins, like, for all intents and purposes in the original, that's basically what he was. So I think that probably was the appropriate choice, but it definitely is a very interesting contrast. But while Pluto doesn't speak for a lot of the story, and mostly just hear him through like angry growls, when he does speak, you can definitely feel how tortured he feels about like all the stuff he's done, and Fred nails that really well. Mm-hmm. And I also especially like the scene where Adam decides to spare him, and the two of them just start crying uncontrollably. Like, you can definitely tell in that moment that both of them kind of realize how much hate doesn't really lead to anything, and just how kind of sad and pointless fighting really is, and it's a really powerful scene. And I will admit, it did make me sad during the bit where he kind of decides to commit the ultimate sacrifice and asks Adam to keep watching over the world. Like that whole bit was really sad, and it kind of drives home how tragic this whole story is.
No, 100%. Like, in his own way, Pluto and effectively Sahid is wants to redeem themselves for everything that they've done, because in a way, Sahid is a victim of circumstance. He's a victim in his own way. He didn't really get much of a choice or a say. Thanks to Professor Abula, essentially, like, practically forcing him to take on this persona and be Pluto. It's the Sahid's story in general is just another massive tragic element to the overarching story. And to talk about Sean Rahani for a second here, there's not a lot that Sean gets to do, similar to what Fred had to deal with Pluto. But man, what Sean got, though, was so effective and just helps continue the story of, like, it helps bring the theme of hatred only bearing more hatred into light as a central theme even more. And I think it ends up being very powerful. And I think I really enjoyed Sean's performance to kind of help bring that theme to light alongside with Fred as Pluto.
I definitely like the whole bit where like where Abula kind of first forces Sahad to take on the Pluto role when like he's asking Sahad if he can like process like all the rage he's feeling and how Sahad's just like, trying his best to really stop his father from going through all this, and you can really feel the desperation in Sean's performance. It's great.
Yeah.
Did you have anything you want to add, Amon?
Let's see. I really like Cameron's performance in general. Like I think Abdul is an interesting character, and I think he brings a lot to that role. I think it's always a shame that whenever I see Fred in anime, I feel like I always watch stuff where he's mostly playing a yelling monster.
Or a yelling robot.
And he gets actual lines here, but this is not too far outside of that, so that's nice. And Melissa's really creepy. Like, I think Dr. Roosevelt seems really unnerving for a teddy bear who does not actually have a lot of animation. He just sits there. And that kind of makes him way creepier than if he did anything. It just
I guess we probably should talk about the two presidents here.
Oh yeah, you didn't get to them. Yeah, let's use that as a jumping off point then. Melissa's creepy as hell. Hate that bear.
Let me just mention about Professor Abula. Casting director made a great choice because this could have easily resulted in a bad stereotype.
100%.
I'm very glad that they got an Arabian person to play Professor Abula, and even if he is putting on an accent, it's a genuine.
Yeah.
It's not a white guy doing a stereotype. So
it makes it more authentic.
I was gonna say talking about Cameron for last, but I really do love his performance as Abula. It's great.
Okay.
Like he does a really good job of putting on. He just does a really great job of putting on a very kind of affable and very collective persona whenever Abula is like out in public, and kind of while also hiding how calculating he is beneath the surface. Abula is a person who is quite literally driven by nothing but hate, and you can really start to feel that hate the more time we spend with him and how bitter he is about everything, and how much the war cost him. I think one scene in particular I really liked, and it sort of like gets the character across really well, is this whole bit, like episode 6 or so, where he's talking with Espelon and everything he's lost in the war, and how on the surface he's talking with Espelon about how he hopes Espelon can do everything he can to look after the kids in his care and, take care of the orphans and whatnot. But you can also tell at the same time that what Abula is really doing is kind of like, looking for a way to exploit Espelon's weaknesses throughout the whole entire conversation. And
100%.
And Cameron gets the duality of that across really well. It's great.
Like, it's effectively like this silent threat. And you can just feel that tension from him.
I also like the scene later in the episode where he's sort of briefly chatting with Dr. Hoffman in the bathroom about everything that's happened in Persia and how the world's not as an execution. And, while he does, seemingly retract the statement, you can just kind of feel all the rage bubbling underneath him when he says that, and and Cameron's delivery there is really great. Also, as mentioned before, I really did like his delivery during the scene where he convinces Sahad to take on the Pluto role, and you can just really feel that this is a man who's lost everything, and, how much his rage is guiding all of his actions to the point where he'd do something that terrible to his own kid, and, it's really great.
No, it's so good. And because my brain was like, I've heard the name Cameron Nicard before, and then I look and I'm like, oh wait, this motherfucker was in Tribe 9. This motherfucker was in Tribe 9, boys and girls. As, manly, gruff mentor man. So this is drastically different. And I'm here for it.
Yeah. And, the last thing I want to touch on, really great job conveying his breakdown when Dr. Temper revealed the truth of who he is. Just, 10 out of 10 there.
Yeah. 100%. It goes from 0 to 100 so fast and so seamlessly. It's just, I love it.
Yeah. All right, and I guess now we can move on to the real villains of the story. So, yeah, so Melissa Hudson as Robot Teddy. It's really great. It's really creepy and unsettling. I also appreciate that while Alexander here is technically the president of Stranger, you can tell right away that Robot Teddy here is the one who's really running the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got that parallel across. They got that parallel across so well. It's great. I also really appreciate Melissa's just very casual delivery when President Alexander found out about the whole destroying the world plan, and Rome was about being like, oh, it's fine. Man, that guy really landed on thick. They said the world's gonna be destroyed, but robots are gonna be just fine.
We're gonna be just fine. You can stay here. But, in return, you're not going to be my slave forever. So sit tight. We're going to have a fun time, you and me, from here on out.
Also did a really killer job with when his whole last scene with Brower is kind of going on about being the god among ants before getting too hickey. Just really great. And basically the moral of the story is you have to be really careful about who you let in the office. I don't think this robot I don't know who voted for this guy, but you might want to.
They just let anyone get into fucking office now. Goddamn. They just let anyone be in office now. Fuck.
Yeah, and he doesn't have as much presence. Well, he doesn't have as much presence, which is kind of mostly a fault of the adaptation, since Alexander and Roosevelt do kind of have a lot more presence in the manga. Like you do get a few more scenes with these two. But I think Kiff did a pretty good job of what he had here. Really good job of making Alexander come off as very self-serving and smug, and ultimately kind of a little bit pathetic, which is definitely very appropriate. Even when he thinks everything is kind of going the way he wants it to, he's just kind of dancing it after Roosevelt's steam without really realizing it. And I also find it extremely funny that while he kind of claims in the end, he was kind of, I did this all for the sake of my citizens. But as soon as things got dire, he ran straight for the shelter because, all that matters is that he's safe.
Yup. He's like, fuck everybody else. I'm gonna save my own ass.
But yeah.
Commentary.
Just brilliant commentary there.
Hardy, what were you gonna say? I thought you were gonna say something.
That's it.
Oh, okay.
Right, so are we good with this section?
I think so. I don't have a lot to say about Keith and Melissa, personally. Oh, Mom wanted to say something. I'm sorry.
No, I said, I said what I wanted to say, and I agree with what everyone else said. For better or for worse, I think this is a show that's more about the protagonists and the antagonists. Abdullah side, probably. So
that's fair. So, on that note, it's time to talk about our final two characters of the evening with our two main characters.
Yay!
We've got Kazik, who is a highly advanced robot detective from Europol who was put in charge of solving the mystery behind Pluto's murders, and is also trying to solve the mystery behind his own missing memories from several years ago. As for Adam, within the context of this story, he was a robot created by Dr. Temba to replace his late son, later taken in by Professor Tanamizu, and helps Kazik with solving the mystery behind Pluto. But again, to anyone outside of Japan who's over the age of 30, you would know him better as Astro Boy, the boy robot who fights to keep peace between robots and humans, and the world's first major anime protagonist, so he's basically the reason any of us are sitting here talking about anime to begin with.
More or less.
So, playing Kazik, we have Jason Vanderbrink, and playing Adam, we have Laura Stahl. Laura Stahl's no stranger to anime, and displays such characters as Hayato Kawajiri, Joseph's Bizarre Adventure, Diamond Unbreakable, Ray in The Promised Neverland, Dorothy in Great Pretender, and Tao Ren in the 2021 version of Shaman King. As for Jason Vanderbrink, he's only had a few video game roles, such as Balsef and Tales of Arise, Vander and Fire Emblem. I can't speak. Vander in Fire Emblem Engage, and Maximus in Saga Scarlet Grace. But as far as anime goes, this is his first role.
Okay.
Dang.
Damn.
You got to get your start somewhere.
That's a good first role.
Yeah, apparently the Japanese version did something similar. So, definitely nice letting someone get their big break. That's really cool.
Like, you love to see it.
All right, which of these two should we talk about first?
Probably Adam, actually. Because
I'm
even
about to say, I'm leaning towards talking about Adam first.
because even though the show is based off of his comic originally, he takes kind of a back seat to the role. Because spoilers, he
Right.
gets killed off in like episode 3 or 4, and then comes back later in the last one. But yeah, no. I'd say that this is a career best for Laura Stahl. You can definitely at her and Adam's fights, you can sort of hear this angry Iruma.
I
Yeah.
can hear it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So, yeah, I'd say she did really good as Adam. As far as Gasik goes, not gonna lie, I'm kind of mixed. Because even though Gasik is a robot, there are times to where I think Jason's performance came across a little bit ironically wooden. But that also sort of works because he is a robot and he is very diplomatic and very by the book. He is a policeman, and so he would speak in a manner of no nonsense, get to the point, give me all the clues, etc., etc. He's sort of like a humanoid calculator, if you will. But that doesn't mean he isn't open to his moments of rage, especially when his child gets destroyed. So, yeah, those are my thoughts.
Okay, Amon.
I mean, for Laura, I agree. Like, this is fantastic. I think she absolutely nails this performance. Both in that, like she handles like the dramatic stuff really well, but she also does a really good job of sounding like a kid. Like a thing that I think this version really highlights is how much Adam's a child. Like Adam is a little kid, and he has all those powers and like responsibilities, but like he's some kid who likes to look at snails in the rain, and like maybe pick them off the sidewalk and put it on leaves so it doesn't get stepped on by accident. That's just the kind of guy he is. And I really liked Jason's performance just because I like Gazik's a fun, maybe not fun. I like Gazik. Gazik feels like he kind of sits in the middle of kind of the. You have the robots who act a little more like robots and the robots who act more like people. And Gazik feels like he kind of falls right into the center of that, where he has humanity and he has feelings, but he is also a guy who, because of why he has been built in the first place, has a lot of that, like, I'm by the book, I do X, Y, and Z, that is why I'm here. Excuse me. And I like that there's sort of this mix of, there's like warmth and humanity to him, but also like, I have a job to do, and that is what I do, and I'm good at it. And like he feels like one of the robots who's a little more aware of like that he is a tool on some level, like he exists for a purpose, and that doesn't gnaw at him. It's just like he's just kind of accepted like that comes part and parcel of being alive. I'm trying to think of what else I had to add. Yeah, I also like his character because like as I mention this, my two favorite characters in Monster are Grimmer and Lunge. And ironically, Gazek is not as like deeply ambivalent about other people as Lunge is, but he feels like roughly kind of like he's that kind of detective. Like he's good at his job, he's very methodical, and he is friendly. But aside from maybe Dr. Hoffman and his wife and his child, a lot of his interpersonal actions feel more like sort of professional friendship rather than like this is a super tight pal of mine who I'm gonna like go see on the weekends.
Yeah.
And I like the way he plays that as somebody who I think maybe like has strong relationships, but he doesn't have a lot of them, and he's fine with that. Like he doesn't need to have a lot of friends. He has his loving wife. I think him and Actually, like I like a lot of him and Mara's scenes together. They give a good sense of like this is a strong long term couple. It's just like the bit where they're like looking at like their quote unquote trip to Spain. They're
Oh
like,
yeah.
do you feel like we took too many photos? Like this isn't like us. We don't do this when we travel. That's weird. They're really cute together.
Mm. Okay.
I mean, I guess my final thought is just like I was bummed when he died. Man just wanted to do good.
Oh no!
He wanted to do good, and look where it got him.
My heart broke.
Yeah. Would we say that? Yeah. Would we say that if you're a robot not named Adam, you're not gonna have a fun time in a story? That does extend to every robot we meet.
Spoilers in case you listen to this long. He bites it like halfway through the story. It sucks.
Yeah, it's around episode 6. He's not around for the final 2 episodes.
I sad.
Yep.
To do anything about that stuff.
God. Not a lot for Laura as Adam. I am full agreement that this is a phenomenal performance. She gives a mix of this. The robot elements are there, but because this is also a child, it's a robot with a childlike curiosity for a good portion of it, which is very interesting and a very interesting trait to play off of. And I think it worked very, very well. But also, when you get to the final, episode and a half of the show, and when Adam reawakens, and he's trying to figure out all of this intense hatred and anger, because the only way he was able to wake up is Tenma implanted Gazik's memory chip in there, and Gazik is the one who has this intense hatred, because the theory is, in order for a robot with infinite possibilities of personality, 9.9 billion or some shit, to figure out what they want and to wake them up from just being there, not even wanting to do shit, you give them intense feelings and emotions, and particularly these negative ones like hatred, sadness, these primal emotions. How Laura portrays the intense amount of hatred that Adam has for Pluto in particular was just so well done. And her just going through each of the robots that were murdered by Pluto. It's just a very intense scene, and I think Laura portrays that very, very well. As for Gazekt, I am very impressed with Jason, this being his first major anime role ever. I'm very impressed with what he does with Gazekt. I can see why Hardy's mixed on it a bit, and I also have to agree with what Amon said and how it's an interesting middle ground for a robotics case, that he's robotic, yes, but he also has some of these human-like elements to him. It's very interesting to see all this unfold, because Gazekt is trying to learn how to be human and have these very human moments and emotions, but at the same time he still knows that he's a robot, and he's this is who I am, and this is what I'm built for and built to do. But he's trying to learn human-like qualities, and I think the most interesting moments for him when that happens is when he rediscovers his missing memories, where he rediscovers what it was like to be a dad, what it was like to lose a child, what it was like to feel this intense hatred towards someone. It delves into things on a subconscious level, and I think Jason portrays that very, very well. And I was heartbroken with what happened to this man. Like, you get little flower boy Ali coming in out of nowhere, and it's just like, bam, you're dead. And I'm like, no! I was like, my brain was like, because Nick was on the phone with Helena talking about maybe wanting to, like, adopt again. And I was like, oh, please adopt little Muhammad Ali. Fucking do it. He's a little sweet little boy. And then he comes in and he kills Gizik because he's fucking brainwashed by Abula, probably. And I'm like, no!
Could you say that he got stung like a bee?
Motherfucker! Oh, thanks, I hate it. But no, I was very sad. Like, I think Jason was able to carry the show as Gizik very, very well. And then Laura was able to take over after that and carry it through the rest of the show, through the rest of the series. Both of them in tandem as lead characters are, I think, very well done.
Okay, so going into Laura Sullivan's Adam, I liked this performance a lot. Also, something I wanted to mention just because I found it extremely amusing in hindsight. And so, around the time the show got like reannounced for Netflix, and like Patrick says was going on about how much he really wanted to direct the show, I remember seeing Laura Stoll like tweet up her circle about like Patrick getting to direct the show and her getting to play Adam. And then, like, I heard the trailer and, like, I heard it was Laura, so I was like, that's beautiful. Remember, kids, don't let your memes be dreams.
God.
But, yeah, I really do like Laura's Adam a lot. She did a really great job of making him come off as a very real child, especially during his first conversation with Kazik, and I thought that Laura did a really good job of giving him a lot of very childlike mannerisms and the way he responds to all of Gizik's questions. It's really great. And I also liked how well she bounced off of Keith's statements, Dr. Tenma, during the scene where Dr. Tenma's telling him about the son he was meant to replace, and how Adams kind of keeps saying how he'll be whatever his father wants him to be, even if you could kind of tell in Tenma's mind it's already too late, and you can just really feel that bit of desperation in Laura's delivery as she's, like, trying really hard to, like, please Tenma, and it's just clearly not working. It's great. And as you guys mentioned before, I really like the way Laura portrayed Adam's shifted personality during his resurrection, where he's kind of overwhelmed by the sense of hatred he inherited from Gizik. And how you can kind of feel that quite a bit of rage in Laura's delivery, especially during the whole final confrontation with Pluto. It's really great. But of course, for me, the most important scene, especially since it's probably the scene most heavily lifted from the original series, is the last one where Adam's kind of talking with Professor Chanamizu, wondering if there will ever be a day where humanity abandons the concepts of hatred and war. That scene was basically the thesis of the entire show, and Laura's delivery was probably going to make it break it for me, but I really liked the way Laura delivered it. It was really poignant. Also, just in general with the show, I really do appreciate that they decided to end on that scene, because they actually rearranged some stuff a bit from how it was on the manga. Because while that was the final scene in the original story, as far as the manga for Pluto went, you want to know what the final scene in the Pluto manga was?
What?
It was a bit where Brown showed up to kill Dr. Roosevelt.
Yeah, that's right. I thought when I was watching it, it's like, didn't this happen last? Like, I remember it ending on Brow like, that spear.
Huh. Interesting. I kind of like how they did it in the anime then.
The anime is a more thoughtful ending. The manga's a better
Yes.
ending if you're a moron like me who likes pulp trash.
Yeah,
Because
it's
Robo Hannibal Lecter murdering a teddy bear is a great ending if you
yeah,
like that
it's
kind of thing.
the ending of the anime is 100% more thoughtful, and while it's not a happy ending, it leaves you on kind of like this bittersweet resolution, I feel like.
So,
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
definitely, really been to just make you think about, how much fighting and violence is really worth it, and I thought that in general, Urasawa did a really great job of portraying Tezuka's original message there. It was great. And now we're getting into Jason's performance as Gazette. I love this a lot. Like I had a, re- as a like I've had various actors in mind for who I wanted to play Gazette for a long time. Like I remember for a long time I was kind of hoping for like someone like maybe Kirk Thornton or something like that, but I was really impressed with Jason's performance here, and he kind of handled the character in basically the exact way I sort of wanted him to. Does a really great job of, as you guys said before, showing multiple sides of the character. Where we see him back pretty stoic and professional while he's doing detective work, like a robot, but also showing
Yeah.
a kind of a more human side when he needs to, especially when he's around friends or family. I think that Jason does a really good job of getting that contrast across. It's great. And I also like that one of our first real instances of getting to know Gazek as a character involves him comforting a robot maid after the death of her husband. Like it's a really brief scene, but there's just so much humanity to that exchange, and Jason does a really great job with it.
That's like the moment that you know what you're in for. Like, yes, you're going to feel sad about this like Jetsons ass robot like feeling emotions over their husband dying.
Mm.
Congratulations. This is
Yeah.
the show you're going to watch for the next 6 hours.
Whoops.
Yeah, I also really like Jason's delivery during the whole flashback where we kind of learn the hows and whys of him killing a human. And even before we learn what happened to Gazek and his child, there's just a strong enough mix of anger and rage and, just an anger, rage, and panic when he kind of learns his kid has been kidnapped. And it really helps you to piece it together before you kind of learn the truth of the mystery, and that's how great Jason's acting is. So, I
Yeah.
remember reading that the first. I remember reading that the manga for the first time. Being like, "Oh wait, wow, is that what actually happened?" Like that's, man, it's wild. And then, of course, I also really love the whole scene where he actually gets to confront Pluto for the first time, and how well he handled that scene where he kind of makes a decision to spare Pluto instead of fighting him. Like, it could really tell how just emotionally exhausted Kazik was by that point and how much he was really starting to sympathize with Sahad, and Jason did a really great job of getting that across. And then, of course, really loved his delivery during his final major scene where Kazik kicks the bucket and kind of spends his last moments trying to comfort the robot kid who shot him. Like, you can just really feel the warmth in Jason's voice when he's sort of reminiscing about a son he lost, and it just makes the scene really sad. And especially love the way he delivers the important line of nothing coming from hatred except more hatred. Again, it's like a really important thesis to the show where Jason gets that across really well. But for me, my favorite scene with him was definitely the scene where Gazek rescues and adopts his robot son. And you can just really feel the warmth in Gazek's tone where he's talking about how he'll never let go of his kid even if the world ends. It's really beautiful, and it just makes it all the more sad when you know what's going to happen to that kid.
Yeah, it's such a sweet moment because it all stems from him trying to figure out what it means to not let something go until the world ends, because just before this he rescues a human child from some criminal, and he just reunites them with his parents. It's very interesting how the motivation of just wanting to understand leads him to understanding what it's like, for better or worse.
Yeah. But all in all, I love these two performances a lot. Like, Blower was great. Jason, like, really stand-up performance, bang-up job. Like, I mean, good things to say about these two. And with that, I guess we're good to move into final thoughts. So,
Pluto is a great show. It's not going to be for everyone. And if you're going to watch it, get ready to invest a lot of time, because while the animation is amazing, the music is amazing, the voice acting is top notch, it is, at the end of the day, very, very slow. So my suggestion would not be to try to marathon it in a single day. You'll wear yourself out. Take your pace, and I hope you enjoy it.
all right, thank you, Hardy. Steph?
Um, as a fan of Naoko Urasawa, I went into this show with pretty high expectations. And especially because I knew that Patrick Seitz directed this, I went into this with pretty high expectations. Um, I think my expectations were met, honestly. This show, because again, as we've established early on, I don't know shit about Astro Boy. So, as someone who does not know the Astro Boy lore and story, coming into this and having a different and fresh perspective was a lot of fun. It was very interesting. 100% I agree with Hardy. It is very slow. Generally, with a lot of Naoki Urasawa stuff, it is going to be hit or miss with people because there are points where it can be slow and drag out like this. Definitely do not marathon it all in one sitting. I marathon like 5 episodes today. That was a bad idea, but my time management was not great. And I'm not much of a sci-fi person, so me watching science fiction can be very, very hit or miss for me, but thankfully for me, the mystery elements and a lot of the character development was what compelled me to like continue to watch it. But in terms of the dub, I think it's stellar. Some minor hiccups here and there, but overall, as a cohesive thing, I think it's brilliant. I am so happy we get to talk about a Naoki Urasawa work in 2024, when again, we don't have a rescue of Master Keaton, and we don't have, I guess, for legal fucking stupidity and shenanigans, we don't have the English dub for Monster being re-released anytime soon. So, I'm happy that we at least do get to talk about something of Naoki Urasawa's, because he is such a phenomenal storyteller. But no, yeah, this dub is fantastic. Again, similar to Hardy's recommendation, do not watch this all in one sitting. It can be very slow, but I loved it.
Okay, Amon?
The show's amazing. I'm so happy it exists. I'm so happy it's as good as it is. Yeah, this is great. Watch it. Try it out. I would agree. Don't marathon this. Like, this is a show that probably benefited a lot from watching it on a week-to-week schedule. You maybe don't have to wait that long between episodes, but like, watch it like an episode a day over the course of like, a little over a week, and you'll probably have a good time. Yeah, just see it. Like, I mean, y'all. I know Netflix is trying to crack down their password sharing, but that's not that hard to get around. Like, go watch it. It's not hard.
That's it.
The show's amazing. I feel like I've sung the praises of the show pretty well over the last 3 hours. Like, yeah, I liked it. It was good.
All right. As for me, yeah, I had a lot of high expectations for this show. Like I said before, I've been a fan of the manga since I read in college, which, oh god, that was like over a decade ago now. I really feel old.
I know, right?
Yeah, I'm glad it finally got adapted. And I'm really happy with how the anime turned out. And I'm especially happy with how the dub turned out. Like, I'm really glad Patrick Sayers got to direct another Urasawa dub, and he did a really great job on it. Really like a lot of the direction, especially like a lot of the casting choices. That's what before they did a really great job of putting together a strong ensemble of a lot of anime veterans, a lot of newer folks, and a lot of like big name voice actors who you normally wouldn't even see in anime. Like a really strong ensemble across the board, and in fact, that every performance here sounds really great. In fact, that I really have a hard time picking a favorite. Just really speaks to how well the sub was put together. And on the whole, I'm really satisfied with it, and I'm happy with how it turned out. In general, this is a show I would really recommend. It's a really fantastic piece of science fiction. Really great. That's like a really great introduction to a lot of the, uh, a lot of the ins and outs of Astro Boy. He does a really great job of conveying a lot of tendencies regarding his anti-war stances. Little bits of civil rights allegory and talking about discrimination, things like that. I think Urasawa did a great job of translating all of that into his own style. And also, in general, the world can always use more Urasawa adaptations. His stuff is always great. So, yeah, I really recommend checking this show out. Definitely take your time watching it. It is definitely a hefty commitment. But in the end, I think it is something really special, and I'm glad this turned out as well as it did. All right, so I guess that will more or less wrap things up here. So, we are the Dub Talk Podcast. You can find us on the Twitters, the Instagrams, the Tumblr, which is somehow less than Twitter is. We really do live in sad times.
Oh, God. We're also on Blue Sky, I believe, as well.
Yep. And as far as new podcast episodes go, we usually have new episodes going up every couple of weeks on YouTube, as well as audio-only versions available on services like Podbean, Spotify, just all your podcast places. And before we wrap things up, if you'd like to support anything we do, you can give a one-time donation to our Ko-fi, or you can be one of our lovely patrons and help us out with donations. And before we wrap things up tonight, I'd like to give a shout out to our patrons. In the $5 tier, we've got Mercelenti, Megan's mom and dad, and Michelle Travis. And in the $10 tier, we've got Anthony Brown, Carla Lesticow, Kwame Soup, and Otaku Anthony. Thanks for your support, guys. We really appreciate you.
We also have one more. For some reason, our list wasn't updated in time for this, and I just noticed it. Crimson Echidna is also part of our $10 Patreon.
I always appreciate you, buddy. Alright. So, is there anything you five people would like to plug?
Real quick, where can people watch Pluto? I know the answer is obvious, but it doesn't hurt to still say it.
Yeah. If you would like to watch Pluto, it is currently available on Netflix and only Netflix. Maybe someday we'll see a Blu-ray release, to which, if it ends up being Viz, that's going to be extremely funny. But until then, it's only Netflix.
I mean, Stone Ocean is at least being released by Viz, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that they tackle Pluto. However, it would be ironic if Viz Media does do the physical release of Pluto. You are right. Given what happened with another Urasawa show called Monster.
I still see people complaining about that to this very day.
Oh, I fucking hate it.
Well, if you wanted more Monster on DVD, you should have fucking bought it then, shouldn't you?
I didn't know it existed, and by that point, it was too late. I couldn't do shit.
I'm not yelling at you. I'm yelling at the unwashed internet masses who like to complain about things but not spend money.
That's true.
You're fine.
You're right. I guess we just plug ourselves at this point, right? My name is Stephanie. I'm also sometimes known on the internet as Lilac. You can follow me on Twitter, Blue Sky, and TikTok at Lilac Anime Review. I also have an Instagram under a completely different name. I just do random shit. I don't use Twitter as much. I use more TikTok and Instagram, really, and a lot of it is either of my cat or my adventures seeing lots of theater, because I live in the tri-state area, and it is a expensive hobby, just like collecting anime is. I just, after spending 3 weekends in a row seeing 4 fucking shows in the city, this is the first weekend I'm not doing really anything.
Thank you for your sacrifice.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I'm here for it.
I am Spaceman Hardy. You can find me on Twitter /X at Spaceman Hardy. I'm also at Blue Sky at Spaceman Hardy at whatever extensions they have. I don't really do much, although other than retweet art and various random tweets and stuff like that. And occasionally we'll scream out donkey pants for no reason whatsoever. So that's me.
When was the last time you posted goat pics, though?
I'll do one right now after we're done.
Okay, because I miss the goats. I love goats.
Alright, Amon.
I'm Amon. You can find me at Twitter, Blue Sky Coast, etc. at Amon Duel US or Lucifer Hunklehead, which is what'll be in the handle name. I talk about comic books and movies and other bullshit and music, and I have a dusty old song for you.
Ooh, goody.
Yay! What do you got?
So this one's a little bit of a cheat because I've technically recommended this before. Longtime listeners may recall that way back when we did Pop Team Epic, I recommended an album called B-1000 by the great Ohio indie rock band Guided by Voices. So I'm going to recommend a specific song from that album because B-1000 is great, and this is another excuse for me to go tell people to go listen to it. There's a song on there called Gold Star for Robot Boy that I like a lot. It's about not fitting in and being frustrated by the limitations put upon you by others and wanting to break out of them. And because of that and having robot in the name, it felt appropriate. So go listen to Robert Pollard griping about how he's tired of being a fourth grade teacher all the time.
I love that. That's great.
It's very weird to me. Like, if you know anything about Guided by Voices, it's very funny that the lead guy was like a middle school teacher for a good chunk of his life. It's like that's funny.
That's great.
Well,
as for me, you can find... Oh, sorry, go ahead, Hardy.
Yeah. Now, I've got 2 song recommendations for you. One that is slightly dusty that some people have heard of before, and one that is not dusty at all and everyone's heard of before. One of them is Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots by the Flaming Lips.
That's a good one.
And, of course, the legend Iron Man by Black Sabbath.
Nice.
Alright, thank you, Hardy. Alright, as for me, you can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Dividega, where I'll usually just be talking about anime, video games, cartoons, or like politics or whatever is happening in the world, I guess. You can also find me on my blog, The Nerdy Abyss, where I'll usually just be talking about whatever Shonen Jump stuff I'm reading. And you can also, I also do some freelance work for A&N, currently in the middle of reviewing Ninja Cowboy for them, so I guess check that out whenever you have the chance.
Yay! Go Jet!
And yeah, that's basically it for me. So, yeah, I guess I'm more or less wraps things up. Thanks for joining me tonight, guys.
I'm happy to.
You're welcome. If this is the only time we get to talk about a Naoko Urasawa thing, I'm here for it. And I'm just gonna go read this children's book about a nameless monster now. Okay.
Someday we'll see. Someday we'll see you release that monster dub. Someday.
I fucking hope so. Let's fucking figure it out, everybody. Holy shit.
I want that, but I also want my more absurd dream, which is that they do an actual non-compressed adaptation of 20th Century
Oh,
Boys.
that
that'd be
Because that's
fun.
my favorite Urasawa thing, because it's way too long, which is like all things I like.
Oh yeah, I've seen everyone screaming for that to get adapted for like basically forever. So hopefully someone does that
I,
someday.
I say way too long with love. I love 20th Century Boys. It's
And I also hope and pray for Hardy's sake. We get Master Keaton again
That
someday.
and a complete release for
Oh, indeed.
Yawawara.
Ooh, that too.
That
Oh
would be
man,
nice.
that's
Though I hear Urasawa wasn't particularly happy with how that one turned out. So yeah.
Damn.
So I guess that's it.
Yeah.
I guess so.
Yeah, so guess we're ready to sign off for now. So thanks for listening, everyone. And until next time, Otaku on friends, and remember that nothing comes from hatred except for more hatred.
Keep it manly.
That's
rock over
Goodbye.
Boston, rock on Chicago.
Once upon a time, in a land far away, there lived a nameless monster. The monster was dying to have a name, so he decided to set out on a journey to find his name. But the world was a large
Alright.
place, so the monster split into two.
I think you're gonna do the whole thing. Folks.
One monster went to the east, and the other went to the west. The monster who went east came to a village. Okay, I'm done.